Hello, Sue and Randy. Good to see you.
Hi, Mike and Andrea. Thank you. It's great to see you too on this beautiful sunny day that we've had two of them in New York. So we're very grateful for that. Hello and welcome to everybody to the live chat series that we have every Sunday evening. I'm Sue, and this is my husband, Randy. And
hello.
Again, we're talking with Mike and Andrea Buckley, who've joined us. And we are now at topic 7 for this evening. We're halfway through these 14 topics, but before we get to tonight, we do want to do a quick review of last week, which was listening beyond the words. So Mike and Andrea, can you take us through a quick review and then bring us into tonight's topic, which is appreciating personality differences?
Sure. Well, to me, the topic of listening is probably the most important topic that I need to dwell on, because sometimes I'm not a great listener. I'm thinking about what I want to say. I'm concentrating on my part of communication instead of the best part of communication, which is having my eyes trained on Andrea, looking for her nonverbal signs. I can tell, I can see the furrow in her brow. When that brow goes up, I'm in trouble. So I have to look for those things. And it means that I'm paying attention, because that's important. And, you know, when we looked at the third option, there was one side, which is his truth. And there's another side that is her truth. But the real truth in listening is in the middle. And how we speak and how we listen really affect what happens in our relationship. And, you know, there's a process of steps on what we call reflective listening. And that means using your nonverbal senses. It means looking in your eyes. It means really listening deeply into the words and not just a flip attention and, okay, I got important stuff to do. You know, that comes across as nonverbal that, you know, when you do that, you're in deep trouble. So it means pay attention. It means reflect back, so that if Andrea tells me something and says, your nose is crooked tonight, I will say, oh, so you think my nose is crooked tonight? So that's the reflective listening part about that. And then check it out. Are you sure you really meant to say that my nose is crooked? Or you didn't like the way I looked at you? You know, it could be something wholly different. So it means check it out. And then I have to repeat it to make sure that what she told me, your nose is crooked, I have to repeat it back to her so that she knows that I heard and I paid attention to what she said. And then we reverse. In other words, Andrew will then explain what she said again, and she might check back to see what I said to her. So that's a process that takes a little bit of practice, but if we do it that way and we do pay attention, we do reflect it back, we do check it out, we do repeat it and reverse it, it's a process that works. And it's one of the most important processes that we have. That's why I say this topic is really, really important for me, especially. There's some solutions for reflecting. It sounds like you use some descriptive terms, or we name an emotion. Well, what I heard you say is it was hot like a fire in the backyard. You know, you just use something to kind of explain what you think you heard. And then another key topic is one of my favorites is, are you saying, because when I'm listening, are you really saying that my nose is crooked? Mm-hmm. You know, so those are the things that if we pay attention and use those suggestions, it really works. And to close, it was said at our session, and it's been said through the third option, that listening feels like being loved. And it means that listening feels so much like being loved that the two are indistinguishable. So that means to me that I better be listening to what she has to say, or else I don't love her as much as I say I do. And that is something that she likes when I do that. So that's kind of it, a quick, in a nutshell, from listening last week. And now I think we need to get back into our topic for this evening.
Yes. Yeah, no, that was a great review, and the reflective listening is really, really important. And it is a skill. It takes a while to get used to that. So Thank you for reviewing that. And then, yeah, let's get into tonight's topic, which is appreciating personality differences. So let's talk about that.
Well, let's just start out saying I couldn't be your nose is pretty. I guess we all could say that. We tend to marry somebody that is really not at all like us. Or let's just start with opposites attract. That's kind of, I think, what's out there. And so personality differences, this topic is all about that. What does that really mean? You know, when we met each other, I think we were attracted to each other, and I could make a list of all the things that I really liked about Mike. And he was a very good listener when we met. Actually, he's really on the quiet side, so I could do all the talking. And he did have that sense of humor that he still has. He was very reliable, funny, good listener, likable, very approachable, kind. I didn't get to know all these things, but that's what kind of grew when I first met him. Very generous with his time and with his money for his friends, or, you know, with me when we dated. So, you know, those are all things that I noticed about him, and he could probably tell you some things he noticed about me too. But it's funny, we start out that way in this topic, but most of this session, or the important part of this talk, is about how somewhere along the line, as the years pass, those things that attracted us can tend to drive us crazy. Anybody that's been married more than 6 months or a year can nod their head, maybe, if you're out there listening, because you ask yourself, well, why would friendliness drive me crazy? Why would generosity drive me crazy? Why would humor drive me crazy? But we're going to talk about how we have these traits that seem to attract us and complete us and fill in the gaps of things we don't have. And then slowly we start feeling differently about them. So we're going to look at them and identify and start to realize, is there a right or wrong? Is there, you know, where are we going to go with our thinking about the opposite ends of personality traits?
Right. And, you know, we've all seen the adage out there that we tend to fall in love with someone that's the exact opposite of who we are. And there's a reason for that, because, you know, Andrea was, you know, very disciplined, very good, a very good cook. She's a great organizer. And those are all things I don't do too well. Mm-hmm. So I really need those traits for us to be complete. And it's something that we've had to work on over our years, but she tends to be more serious than me. I poke fun and I try to get her going a little bit. And, but sometimes she doesn't appreciate that. And that's when I said, that watch that eyebrow. If that eyebrow goes up, I'm in trouble. So I keep an eye on that all the time. But it's, there's no such thing as a good or bad personality trait. What can be difficult is that there can be extremes. Like if someone is too generous, they can give away everything that you were supposed to have for your groceries or for college educations for your kids. And if you gave all your money away, then you're really going to have a financial burden. And the other spouse is going to resent that big, or as President Trump says, bigly. But those are the things that we have to watch out for, because when we do have a big difference, the other person doesn't appreciate it. And that's what we're going to get into here in this session. One of the things that we really are looking for here in this topic is the actual balance line. That is, there's a personality trait on one side, there's a personality trait on the other, and the actual third option when we meet in the middle is bridging that gap. How we can appreciate the differences that our spouse has from us, and how we can come together and overlap. And that is the third option. That is our goal when we try to do that. There it is.
There it is. Yes. Yes. So yeah, you know, I can really understand how, and I think it's interesting what Andrea was saying. Well, how can humor be something that was great at the beginning, but down the road, it drives you insane? So I can understand how that does happen because, and you alluded to that, is there's moments where that humor is not appreciated. Maybe it's not the right time for that type of humor. And so reading the room, I think, can be important for some situations. So yeah, let's talk about some of these differences and personality traits, and then go into the fact that the third option is where we bridge and grow to appreciate the differences that we once used to love about the other person, and now we just can't stand it.
Yes, we've got a few here. We can read off a list that I think a lot of us can identify with. We've got on one side, neat. The opposite trait is messy. We have passive and aggressive. Audio, visual. Spender, saver. Procrastinator, impulsive. Dependent, independent. Humorous, and serious. Task-oriented, people-oriented. Fast thinker, someone who has to take their time and mull it over. Talkative or quiet. Sociable, loner. Stubborn or easygoing. Or you could say rigid and flexible for those traits. Introvert, extrovert. Logical, emotional. Pessimist, optimist. Active, inactive or lazy. Detail or big picture person. Early and late. So big list. I don't know. I bet you see yourself in some of those things.
Right, we do. And I can even allude to, you know, as a matter of fact, you know, Randy is that thinker. He will just research the crap out of something and research. And I'm like, hey, we've thought enough. Let's move on and make the decision. And so, you know, that does work because I can be a little more of that personality that's like, oh, hey, I want to do this. And off I go. And he's like, well, wait, let's think about all of the, you know, necessary precautions or necessary, you know, whatever. So we do actually balance each other well, because for instance, just this whole third option live chat, you know, I had talked about, I was thinking originally of doing a podcast and, you know, trying to research doing that. And then there was that point early on in this whole COVID where I'm just like in the middle of the night thinking, no, I just want to do this. I think we just need to do this now. And, you know, whereas Randy, I think was a little more, let's wait a little longer. Let's research. Let's think about this. So we do balance each other out. And I think now, I think it's working out for us, you know, and I have to appreciate that he does stop and think about a lot of stuff, because that does bring me back to, hold on, hold your horses. Let's just check a few things off the list first. And yet I can also push him in some ways to say, listen, now's the opportune time. I've thought about this. Let's just jump in. Sometimes you just have to jump in. And I think he appreciates that. And I think he recognizes that starting this now, this whole live Facebook chat thing has actually been really good and powerful.
Well, and it goes back to some of I think the overarching dynamics and some of the modules we've talked about, you know, control and balance, all these different modules we talked about so far. And I think you said at one point early on, Mike, one of you two said that we marry somebody that's different and then we try to change them, right? And that's when it becomes, when it doesn't really work, that's when it becomes this. And it's that point where we forgot that we're all on the same team, right? We're all in the same boat. We're actually all pulling the same direction, and we get off track and we aren't, and we're going in circles, right? So all that, it all ties in to these appreciating those differences. And when you're in the middle of it and it's this and it's this, you know, you don't stop and appreciate, you know, as we're talking about those traits.
And I think,
It's hard to do.
It is.
It's easy to say,
yeah,
it's hard to do.
Well, and those two traits, you know, if they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, you know, people will at a point, often, not all the time, but at a point, they might start to be like, well, this isn't going to work. We are totally different. We're going in these opposite ways, instead of realizing, you know, that we both have these great skills that can really move us forward together. They just kind of get to a point where, like, I don't want to deal with it. I want to be done. I think that can often happen. I don't want to, he's so impulsive, you know. Well, impulsive can be, which Randy is not, but impulsive can be good. And it's recognizing that, you know, at one time it really did work and we were working as a team. You know, he dragged me out to try something new that I never would have done. And so it's recognizing and realizing to come back together and say, no, we just have to work together a little bit more to continue. It can work for us. We just have to be willing to do that. And that's where it goes into, you know, making the choice that this is what we want. We want this. We want what we have now.
Yes.
True.
And sometimes, sorry, Mike, it's about when we talked about the module of speaking the truth in love, to sometimes say, okay, if you want to, go ahead, right? But not doing that in a bad way, right? It's like, okay, then let's try it. I don't agree, but maybe I'm wrong, and well, there's one way to find out, right? And sometimes I was right, and sometimes I was wrong, right? And you find out, and you move on. It's not really that difficult. It's not as difficult as we might make it sometimes.
Right.
But then you can't go back and keep score. You can't go back and keep score. That's in the one of our previous lessons.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, our spouse's personality traits probably haven't changed that much, you know, since we've been married, but sometimes our perception of it has. When we were dating, someone that was fun-loving, flexible, easygoing, that was a positive thing back when you were first dating. But then later that can become, after disillusionment sets in, and that's that after that romance stage, disillusionment will set into a marriage. And that's when things that the spouse does don't look so good anymore. They don't really like them anymore. And that's where we have difficulty. Well, he's lazy now. He was flexible and fun-loving and easygoing, but now he's lazy, irresponsible. He's not holding up his end of the bargain anymore.
Well, I think
those rose-colored glasses have come off, and things are a whole lot different now.
Yeah, I think the key word you said there is, what we don't realize is our perceptions have changed, right? That's the key. Right, wrong, or indifferent. You know, we grow and we change. Those perceptions change, and we can't get caught up and dragged down with them, right? And forget what the main goal was, right?
Yes, well, on this list that we just read through, I probably see Mike and I on the opposites of a lot of these traits, the majority of them. And I think the perception, take for example, early and late. That's like a generic thing that I think relationships have, one or the other, that's the opposite. Early riser, late sleeper, on time for things, not on time for things, procrastinating, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think what changes the perception is the intention. We start to assume, okay, we've gone from expectations, which was the beginning seed for disillusionment. And now we've moved into this, in the personality difference, and newsflash, we're different. But we wrestle with that like it's a big thing. Well, how can we be different? You know, this is driving me crazy. I'm not really crazy. You got to identify what it's not craziness. This is normal. Difference and different is normal, but what did we expect? So it takes us back to that expectation session. So this built on that. And so in taking early and late, it takes an example of something going on between us where one of us says, well, you intentionally did that. So now, you know, it irritates me. And so you were late on purpose. And so right away, you think that it's gone beyond just that you're different in your thinking. And now you start to build a case that drives a wedge between you and drives you apart. And you identify what can happen is we identify that it's either good or it's bad. When in actuality, all of these traits that we listed have the propensity to be bad, be too bad, or be too good. They really can be to the extreme difficult. So take one being generous. You could be too generous and give away all your money and your family has nothing or be taken advantage of because you're so generous. You know, there's negative sides to that. Someone who is not and is the opposite may be a saver, which can be a good thing to save. But if they always saved and never spent on themselves or anyone else, they could become stingy and selfish. So we begin to start, ask our viewers to think about these qualities and then also to go that next step and think about the problem really arises when we are shaken and surprised and shocked about the differences, like we weren't prepared. So this is like a real thing front and center now, like, oh, wow, we're really different. And then we have to evolve, like we've been saying. Now, what's the next step from that? Once we recognize, okay, we're different, we have to try to learn to put ourselves out there, try something new, and to not be frustrated and not think that where we see our personality trait, that it's superior. I'm right, and this way's better. Mm-hmm. But we have to see the balance, and we have to know that both ends have value, and not have the judgment come in of right and wrong. They just are, and they're just different.
When we are seeing that disillusionment settle in, we're saying she's wrong, or she's saying he's wrong.
You got to change, or I got to change.
And the thing is, we're trying to change that other person. And Randy and Sue, we've had that discussion before. I can't change her. She can't change me. We've tried it for all these years. It's not going to happen that way. Even though we think we're right, it's not going to happen that way. The only person we can change is ourselves. And that's the key to third option. Self-change is the key to all of the self-change topics that we have. Because if we don't look to change ourselves, we can't blame that other person, like in session 2, that it's all their fault. Because again, it really isn't all their fault. I brought some ugliness to the table too, and we have to recognize that. So in this understanding the personality differences, again, I can't change her. So that's where this come to the middle and bridge and grow comes in, that we're trying to make sure that we know that we're not completely right about it. And we have to appreciate the difference. I have to appreciate the differences that she does have, and I really do. But sometimes I'm not comfortable with the degree of it. And that's where that extreme comes in, and where we need to really work on how we communicate that to each other.
So, like you said, we can only self-change. And I think really a big part of it is we started out in one sense, oh, this person's wonderful, he's so adventurous, he's so sociable, and I don't know, all these things. And then after a while, we're like, oh, he just is always out hiking, and he's always talking to everybody at the parties, and and all that stuff. So it's like our perception, like you said, it's changed. And so we have to really, come back to that, they didn't change, our perception had changed. So it's my responsibility to go back and think, I really appreciated those qualities that he has. I have to go back and bring that back out and say, you know what, he is adventurous. That's a wonderful thing. I can join him on some of his adventures, and some maybe not, so it's really our responsibility to go back and change that perception again to respect the differences, just like you said. So what are some of the tools, though? I want to talk about some of the tools that we can do to help us, I think, understand ourselves and understand mainly ourselves, but then also understand our partner. There's some different things that we can do to kind of get to that middle, to bridge and grow. What do we do to do that?
Well, you said it just a second ago, Sue. We have to appreciate those differences and know that what's comfortable for Randy might not be comfortable for you, and vice versa. And by appreciating it, it means that you recognize it and you know that you're not going to change him. That's just the way he works. But how we come to the middle, that bridge and grow, is where we have to at least state that we understand that we are different and say, how are we going to come to that middle? How are we going to work on this so that the other person might recognize? Like, one thing Andrea hates is that when I'm humming the same tune, because to me it relaxes me and it gets me in the thinking process. And she says, "Will you stop that? It's driving me crazy." And I do stop it. So I have to recognize that I am bothering her and then try to stop that as a change in me. Now, it doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm not going to do it over again, but at least I recognize that I have that behavior that just drives her nuts. And that's just one little example of that.
I think if you want to call it a tool, the best way I can describe it is accept as fact that we're different, and have an open mind and not be judgmental about one trait being better than another trait. To just like put it out there and look at it for what it is, the reality of it, and make the effort. I think no accident that this is right behind the listening topic, because it's in listening and having those dialogues that Mike just said in the review, going back and forth. I feel this way. Is it like this? Like, how much on a scale of 1 to 10 is that bothering you? Mm-hmm. Getting that communication part in, you can move to the actual reality of day-to-day life with someone when you have personality differences, and you can begin to reach out beyond your own perspective and look at it as a positive thing in your life, and that it's probably for a good reason we selected people to be with that we can learn from. I'll give one example in our situation is like whenever we're going to do a task or a project, I'll get all revved up, okay, Saturday morning or Sunday morning, we're going to do this today. I'm up bright and early, ready with my shovel and my gloves or whatever it is I need. And Mike is still having a second cup of coffee, and we're going to do this project, but I'm like, inevitably, I'm out the door starting on the project, and he's coming along, and I'm always annoyed that, oh my gosh, he knows we're going to do this. Why is he taking so long to do it? But guess what? We'll be out there involved, and this has happened so many times in our lives, whether it's moving or work or whatever I've engaged that he's going to help me with, we're going to do together. I get tired after I run out of energy, and Mike will always finish the project. He comes along with his personality that has perseverance, and he can see things through to the end, where I'm just like, gung-ho to go, and I run out of gas. So I've really seen that now and can accept and appreciate. I motivate him so he gets the desire to do it, but then he also, will come alongside and just, really be there and finish the job.
I've got a quick one too. We just did it this weekend or during the week. He loves to move furniture, and I don't like to be moving furniture. My mother had the couches and chairs in the same place for 20 years when I was growing up. But Andrea loves to move furniture. And I go, uh-oh, here we go. And she does a lot of it herself because she knows that I don't really like to do it. But I help her on the heavy stuff. And when she gets done, I do appreciate it. But it just has a look of pain in my face to say, oh, no, we have to do this again. But, part of this appreciating our personality differences is that we have to kind of grow up. We have to mature and know she's going to do stuff different from me, and I'm going to do the opposite on the stuff that she doesn't really like that I do. So if we can just grow up and say, she's built that way, I'm built another way, and appreciate that and try to negotiate and work it out, then that way we don't have as much resentment. And that resentment in little things builds to bigger things later, the big issues that take place. So those are the things that we look at.
Yeah, I think that that's really important, that word appreciate. But I think I like the word, as you were talking too, I was thinking we have to value those differences. At one point in the beginning, we really valued the differences in the person with whom we were trying to form this relationship. And we really valued that. And over time, we devalued it and became a bad thing, like you said. And then we have to go back. And your story was a perfect example. Andrea's up and ready to go. And quite frankly, it's like looking in a mirror. Looking in a mirror. But her excitement and ready to go and that motivation to go is valued, and you, even though you might be like, I just want to have another freaking cup of coffee, but you value the fact that she's ready to go and she's going to start something that really in the end will do great. And then she values, even though he's taking that second cup of coffee, you can value that his kind of more relaxed demeanor helps balances you out in the sense that he finishes, you can start it and get excited and get it going, and he finishes, and look at what the two of you created at the end. So I think it's valuing those differences, reminding ourselves that we have to value those differences. I want to move on to, and I started to screen share it a little bit, but I want to talk about one thing here. There is no such thing as a good or bad personality trait, which you mentioned. So again, that comes back to appreciating those personality traits and revaluing those personality traits that over a course of time you decided that was bad. It was a bad trait. I want to be done. And then I want to go on to the next one, which are some resources. So just give me a second to bring it up. It's talking about how we can really identify who we are, and identify who we are, which is right here. Some resources here. The Myers-Briggs, I remember talking about these. These are some resources to really kind of identify your personality inventory. It just gives us each a really great understanding of who we are. And Kirsty Bates assessment, I know we've done this a long time ago. I don't remember, but in this other, institute. So there's opportunity here, and it's kind of fun. You fill out the information, answer some questions, and then you look at it and you might be like, oh, spot on. That is me. I totally get it now. And I get why he is or she is or whatever. So those are some great resources to look into. Andrea and Mike, do you have anything in particular about any of one of those resources that you found helpful?
I like the Myers-Briggs personality inventory. I did it for business because you really are looking to create a team in the workplace, and you don't want all the same people. Everyone brings a little bit different to the table, their strengths, their weaknesses, and the Myers-Briggs test, the series of questions that come up, enable management to put together a great team. And that was an eye-opener for me several years ago.
I like that analysis too of it being a team, because if you were creating a team at a job, you wouldn't want 4 of the same personality types. And in a marriage, it would be the same thing. If we were carbon copies, one of us is redundant. We really don't need that on the team. So I think the differences are essential.
Excellent. And some suggested exercises for this week to keep track of your personality traits that you notice about your spouse. If they seem negative, then go back, change your thinking, get a different perspective, go back to that perspective and value their differences. And ask yourself, is his or her strength my weakness? And consider where that suggests that you need your own improvement. Questions to yourself: how well do I know myself? And right there, those assessments can really, truly help us know and understand who we are. And recognizing, are you a thinker, doer, organized, unorganized, etc. And, what are the positive and negative aspects and how can they be perceived that way? I do want to say, as we're looking at these questions, I think we also have to, what is that saying? Oh, I don't know. I am who I am, or there's something that I think we have to be very careful of is, what is it? Where it is what it is, or something like that. But, there's a point where we also do have to recognize, hey, if I'm just being a jerk, it's not, well, that's just who I am. Well, you know what? There is a point where we also have to recognize I'm just being a jerk.
So that's a cop out, right?
Cop-out.
So to a certain extent, it's a cop out. So again, it's about that balance. And as you referred to earlier, Mike, when you're aware of some things that might bother Andrea, and what I should do if I realize the same thing is respect that, think about that, respect that a little bit, right? Okay, it doesn't mean, and just respect to give people space, adjust a little bit. Well, that's just the way I am, right?
It's people fall back on that.
It's like being honest. Well, I'm just telling the truth. Well, there's ways to do that are well-intentioned, ways that are not. So the same thing here. It's not that's just the way I'm, because I could say, well, you married me, right? I didn't marry me, you married me.
Right. And
and I've said that once or twice.
Yeah, there's something really deep behind that too, because I think we could tend to feel threatened when we see differences like that in the people that we are in close relationships with, because that means we might need to change. We don't like to face that.
Right.
So I think it is a challenge, and the challenge to grow, the challenge to bridge, but it's a choice. It's like everything we've said along the way in this program.
Right.
Hopefully it's going to be the choice to self-change, and you choose the time and you choose your own process of how you do that.
Exactly. Which brings us to that last final thoughts, or these few final thoughts, and that it is self-change, and it's a good thing. And if you're starting this process and you're in a hurting relationship and you're watching these videos and you're tuning in, or you're doing some other program or finding some other program, that takes courage, and that's a good thing. So you should feel good that you're taking those steps, because it is not easy. It's not easy to ever say, hey, we're struggling. Nobody really wants to, but really most people are somewhere at some point in their relationships. They've struggled somewhere. And the beauty that we talked about is when this COVID and things are released, maybe there'll be a point where the groups can come back together and actually meet in person as opposed to Zoom or whatever. And that is really the beauty of this program, is that you sit in the room with 4, 5, 6, who knows, maybe 10 other couples. And it may seem, you may seem embarrassed or ashamed at first or this or that, but you know what? Nobody's thinking anything. You're all in the same boat. It feels good. It's comforting. And that's the beauty, I think, of the program. So, we just want to remind people who do see the video, please feel free to contact us, email us, comment on Facebook or on Twitter, follow us. We'd love that. If you like this program, mention it, share the information out. We'd love it. It's really a ministry to try to help people, because isn't that what we all really want to do and should do, is just try to help each other. And, that first step, it wasn't easy going to that first meeting years ago. But you know what? It's so worth it. And everybody really has their stuff, and it's okay. It's okay. And it's also good and okay to reach out and say, hey, we need a little help here. That's a good thing too. If you needed heart medicine, well, then you'd go get it. So this is the same sort of thing. This is medicine for your soul and medicine for your relationship. And we do have the program available. You can stream it. We also have DVD. We do still have a, discount. We do have a discount still going on until the end of May. And feel free to go to our website and check that out. You can do the program right at home. You can watch it during the week. Then you can join us here on Sunday evenings. And if you like the program, hey, consider contacting your local church or a social organization, asking them to please contact us and ask if they would purchase the program so they can put it on. And then you can meet in person, and you'll really see how valuable the program is and how it can really change your life, your perspective, your family, and for your kids. It's a powerful thing. So Mike and Andrea, thank you again.
As always, it's a pleasure to chat with you guys.
Yes, we appreciate it. We love hearing the topics and hearing your personal stories, which is always fun. Next week, Mike and Andrea, you remember this probably better than I do. What is our topic next week? We're on topic 8. It's
recognizing childhood emotional baggage, meaning how we grew up is what we take to our marriages. And sometimes it was great, sometimes it wasn't so great. And we don't understand where that other spouse is coming from. We're going to talk about that. It's a very serious topic. It sometimes can explain some issues that people have in their relationships. And they don't even know it.
Right. Unfinished business.
Mm-hmm. It's a big one. It's a big topic and really important. So thanks again, everybody. Please send us some messages. We hope you all do well. Take care.
Bye.